Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Today I have the privilege of interviewing my grandfather, Robert Roy, or granddad is what I call him. Anyway, so I'm really excited to do this, and let's just dive in. So, granddad,
Yes.
what has life taught you?
You gotta be kidding me. What has life taught me? Life has taught me to live a healthy life, to take care of your health and make sure that when you have aches and pains, you see a competent doctor, not some quack. So I've been looking for competent doctors all my life, and I think I haven't found one yet, but I'm still looking.
When did you, is that a recent thing, or was that something that you learned in your youth?
Oh no, I learned that once you fell on a banana peel, you better have somebody take care of you.
Okay. What do you think, beyond that, what do you think is the most important life lesson?
Oh boy, well, I think that you need to be honest, and you need to take care of family, and I think family love is the most important thing in your life, and I think without family, you just go astray and you flounder in the water. You have to have a strong family life, and I think that's the key to my life. I've been very fortunate to have great daughters and in-laws and grandchildren, and they're all dedicated to each other, and I think that's what makes me happy, being close to my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that always important to you in life?
Always, yes. Because
Even from a young
I
age?
didn't really have that when I grew up.
Oh, no?
No, I was very distant from my father, and my mother was always ill, and she passed away at a fairly young age, at 58, and my brother died at 58, and so, and being in the military, didn't have family. I just had the military, so I lacked that until I got married, and after I got married, I had 3 daughters, and then I've got 9 grandkids, and
Wow.
and even the grandkids are starting to have kids, so the family is growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way life has turned out, and I just figured that my birthday's coming up in August, and that's a milestone, and I may have another one, which would be good.
Yes, that would be good.
Because the more birthdays I have, the more desserts I get when I go to the restaurants.
Would you say, obviously, family being really important, do you think that's what life is all about? Or do you think there's other things that life can offer that?
Oh, yeah. Well, life can offer a lot of things, but I think family is the key. I think that having a good foundation, a good strong religion, believing in the Lord leads you to better things, because you have to have that foundation. A strong foundation I think, is the key to everything, to family, to everything. I mean, without money, you have to have money, otherwise you're on the dole. The dole meaning you're begging and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm not the type of person that wants to be on Skid Row or down in San Francisco or L.A. on the with the homeless. I want to be self-sufficient and hope my family can take care of me in old age, because they've got the money.
So you talked about religion.
Yes.
A lot of my friends are not very religious at all.
Okay.
I think it might be a generational thing.
Yes, it is.
What's your take on that? What's your opinion?
Well, this generation, there's a lot of smart people, and there's a lot of dumb people.
Always.
But I think that what's happening with the world today is in such a turmoil. It's all chaos. It's people don't know where they're going. They don't have any direction. They're just they're like they're wandering in the forest. They just there are some people that's got their head screwed on, and there's some people that got their head screwed off. And it's just one of these things where we're heading for a disaster, and it's maybe 10 or 15 years off. But I think I'm not one to preach, but I think that the Lord is coming, and God help those that's not ready to go to heaven. They're going to go to hell. There's two places. This world is really messed up, and you look at the politics; they can't agree on anything, and it's sad. It's just the country is divided. It's not united, and usually the only time that the country that is divided gets back into unity is when they have a war. A war unites people. So I hope that we don't have another war, but we have got to do something to bring people together. And there are so many people. I think one of the biggest problems is the fact that there are so many women that have children, but the children don't have a father because it was a one-time thing, and the husband, the man goes off, and the woman's got to bring the children up without a father, and that's a very bad thing. It really is.
Yeah.
So, homelessness is bad, and people that are homeless don't really care. They have no purpose in life, so they wander around hoping other people will pay for them or give them handouts.
Do you think religion plays a role in that purpose?
Yes, I think religion is probably one of the most important things, because you believe in something with religion, and you've got to have a belief in something. And what is stronger than religion to give you a belief? That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to be religious. You don't have to be over the top, but you have to believe in something. Either you believe in yourself, you believe in God, you believe in family, but you have to believe in something. You have to. That gives you incentive. Like if I undergo an operation, if I go to the hospital and I have to have an operation, the first thing I do is I say a prayer to the Lord, and I pray for strength, and it gives me strength, because then it puts what's before me out of my head, and I just think of God, and I think He's going to take care of me, and I have no worry about the procedure once I say a prayer to God, and then I wake up and I say, thank you, God, for getting me through this operation. So I think faith is very important to me.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because you've been through a lot of health things over the years, and you've triumphed and you've survived all of that, and so having that will to live, or that belief that you will be taken care of, I think it sounds like it played a big role in
very important,
setting your mindset up for success.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know for me, having the thought that there's something higher and they have a plan, it kind of helps put my mind at ease when I tend to overthink or doubt the future. It's
exactly.
Like, if I can believe in that, the plan, that there is a greater purpose,
exactly,
then it helps me a little bit.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice if you're going through a procedure that's serious, to have family with you. If you don't have family, it's important to have God with you. But even if you have family with you, if you believe, you're still going to say your prayers to yourself and have family around you for support. So I think that, like you said, I've been through surgery after surgery, open heart, and you name it, and 2 cancers and everything else. And I'm here today because of the Lord, not because of myself.
Yeah.
The doctors, they work. The Lord works through the doctors to save your life. And without God, I think that I've been gone a long time ago.
Wow.
I know I would have.
Yeah. Wow. What are some of your proudest moments in life?
Proudest moments? Well, having children, even though they were girls. I mean.
What does that mean?
I mean, I always wanted a boy. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And we would have had a boy, but it was a stillbirth. So the child died, but the delivery was in 7 months, but it was premature, and the child would have been disformed. so it was fortunate that it didn't survive. And then I had a daughter, and of course, I was looking for a boy, but it was a girl. And then I said to myself, well, thank God it's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, well, the next one, I said, well, I know I'm going to have a boy this time. And so I found out it was a girl, and I said, oh, good. Well, at least it's healthy. Then I had the third one. I knew this was going to be a girl because I had two other girls.
Yeah.
And it was a girl, and I was happy because all three were healthy, and,
Mhm.
and all three are basically mentally stable.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, so they're very good. They are great daughters, and the thing about my daughters is they love each other, and they don't fight amongst each other, and they're very gracious, and they even give me nice birthday cards. So I look at the verses, and I read the verses because they're very important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very fortunate with having the daughters, and I have no regrets. I would have liked to have a son, but the Lord said, I'm going to give you what you're going to deserve, and that was girls. So so I have three girls, and they're fantastic.
That's awesome. Okay, so having a family was a proud moment for you.
That was great. I was the one that was never going to have. I was never going to get married.
Oh no.
No, I didn't
You're a
want.
bachelor for life.
Yeah, until I was 24.
Oh, okay.
So I held off a long time, but when I was 24, I got married, and then the rest is history. But I'm very proud of my daughters, and well, I couldn't be any prouder than I am. As far as great things that happened to my life, I went through a couple wars, you might say, and I didn't have to actually kill anybody, or nobody killed me, so I'm fortunate there. And I've been able to, I don't know, accomplish a lot in the military. And
Because you were in the Air Force.
yeah, I spent
For how many years?
30 years in the Air
Oh, wow.
Force.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 9 years with the Navy, and then I spent 4 years with Air Intelligence in the Air Force as a civilian. So I had 44 years with the
Wow.
military, and I've got a couple citations and awards and things,
Oh,
which
cool.
I cherish, and I have fairly good health, and I'm thankful for that. And I think the key to my life right now at my age is that I have a very loving family, and I have a strong conviction for God, and I believe in going to church, and I believe in living a good life the best I can. Yeah.
What does living a good life mean to you? Like, what does that look like?
What does it mean?
Yeah, what does it look like? Like, you're living your best life, you're living a good life.
Yeah. I think as you get older, I think besides having a loving family, I think prosperity is very important. Being self-sufficient, not having to depend on social benefits and things like that, but just living on what you earn throughout your life, saving and being prudent in the fact that you're not wasteful, but you think when you spend it, you don't spend foolishly, and you look to be able to give to your family when you pass on some legacy, something. Whether I'm going to write I'm going to write a biography.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I'm in the process right now.
Very cool.
I've been working on that now for 10 years or more. But it's
gonna be, I'm sure, a long story. Huh?
But no, it's going to be a short story.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I've been trying to write this for about 10 years, so I figured that if I write a long story, I don't have that much more time, so it's got to be a short story. So it'll be a short story, maybe 100 pages or so, single spaced. And
single space.
but yeah, I've got a lot to tell, and I've got to be very careful because I may have to read it before I publish it so that I can censor out the things that I need the act or whatever you call it. But yeah, I'm going to write a biography. This way I can give this to my grandchildren, and they could better understand me.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be helpful for them because they don't really know me, you know what I mean? I've been away from my grandkids for many years, And there's a lot to tell, and there's a lot not to tell, especially a lot not to tell. But anyway, I'm going to write this. I'm going to write this, and I've got to get busy.
Yeah, I was just telling Mom, I was like, I feel like I don't know, even aunts and uncles, family members who you've had in your life and you might take for granted, and you don't really spend the time to ask the important questions about their life and what's important to them. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this a little bit, is to get to know you a little better and, just kind of hear from you about what life's about and what's been your perspective.
Well, I've had several cousins. I mean, and my one uncle had 4 children. My Uncle Alan's daughter is the only one alive of the 4 children. My other 3 cousins have been dead a long time ago. All my cousins are gone, and all my uncles are gone. My grandparents are gone, and so with my mother passing away back in 1952,
oh wow,
I've been without a mother. My father passed away in 1975 at the age of 83, but we were never close. It was just, he was old school.
What does that mean to you?
Old school means old-fashioned, a lot of principles that are not here anymore. Family was important from the standpoint of supporting them, but there wasn't the same closeness. People in the old days worked hard, and they didn't have time for love. They were dedicated to supporting their family and working hard, long hours, and then going to bed and going to sleep. But they were not like they are today. Today, a father or mother are much closer in general to their children, and they spoil their children today.
Yeah. Back
in the old days, you didn't have the money to support your kids, to spoil them.
Because when you were growing up, you were born in the early 1930s.
Born in 1930.
1930. Yeah. So the Great Depression was kind of happening.
It was there.
And so I'm sure that affected the relationship with your parents, but also how you view money today. Do you think that's...
Well, we had, my father had, he worked about 12 hours a day. He had very little money. He had just about enough to support us. And I remember I don't remember during the Depression, but I heard about it. My father was unemployed for about 10 months. And so my mother had to go to a place where they could get potatoes and food.
Yeah, like rations.
Yeah, rations to support the family. So life was very difficult. And as I grew up, I had 2 paper routes. And so...
what age were you when you started working? Those paper routes?
I was probably, I was still in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in elementary school, and I delivered a morning paper, 150 papers for the Chicago Tribune in the morning. And then in the afternoon after school, I delivered the Chicago Sun-Times. That was about 80 papers. And wow. I only got paid after I made the collection. So if someone didn't pay me, it came out of what I made. I made a penny a paper.
Really?
Yeah. So if
what would the equivalent to a penny a paper be today?
Well, you could buy a newspaper probably for 3 cents. So if I got a penny for a paper, I remember
it's probably like $1.
Well, no, it wasn't that much, but
no.
That's hard to make that equation. But
okay.
I remember in front of Comiskey Park where the White Sox played, I sold newspapers with a scorecard in it, and a pencil. And I would sell it for whatever a customer would give me. Like he might give me a dime or he might give me a quarter. If he gave me a quarter, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because that was a big profit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sold scorecards at Comiskey Park, and delivered newspapers. And then when I was still in elementary school, I worked in a grocery store, and I cut luncheon meat and served the customers and took their money, added up all the costs of the groceries on a paper bag. We just added up, write it down on a paper bag, throw a line underneath the column, total it up, and tell the customer how much it was. And during that time, there was war on, and everything, not everything, but a lot of things were rationed, butter, sugar, things like that was rationed. And So I had that responsibility in elementary school
Yeah.
to be able to basically be an assistant to the manager of the grocery store. So that was a big
Wow.
responsibility. And then of course, I went to high school, and then.
Did you feel like when you were younger, when you had to do those jobs, was it part of the contribution to the family, or were you able to kind of better yourself and your situation by saving that? And
I think that if I can recall properly, it probably I was able to keep the money because it wasn't very much. I mean, it wasn't big stuff.
yeah.
I mean, you might get a couple dollars in a week, and I was a stamp collector, so every penny that I earned delivering newspapers or anything, I would buy stamps, and I'd save stamps.
Do you still have those stamps?
No, I sold the whole collection that I saved all my life
Did you really? Wow.
for $300.
Oh, wow.
So I got ripped off. I got ripped off, but
When did you sell that? Recently, or when you were younger?
No, I kept those stamps. Well, I gave them to my brother when I went in the military, and then he didn't keep up the collection. So when I came back from the service, I asked him if he still had the collection, and he said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Do you want the collection back?" I said, "Yeah, if you don't want it." So he gave it back to me, and I never developed it any further. I just kept them in a cupboard. And then when I moved to Florida in 2006, I didn't have a lot of room in the car to carry all this stuff, so I sold them to a stamp collector who said, "Well, I'll give you 300, take it or leave it." So I took it, and now I'm sorry I didn't keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, I worked in Marshall Field in Chicago, and I made 72.5 cents an hour. I worked 32 hours a week going to college, and it paid for my books, my transportation, and my lunch. And my father said, Robert, you should go out and get a proper job and quit school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said.
Education wasn't
No,
valued?
no.
Or?
He said that money was more important to the household than it was for me to go to college. So I decided, well, I'm getting all this harassment all the time. So I said, well, the Korean War was on, and they were drafting people. They would take so many people out of each district in Chicago, and you had a number, and so I was allotted a certain number. When I went down to the draft board, we had people that were 35 years old, and there was people that were 18 like I was.
Right.
And so they would be drafting people, and our district would have so many people. It's getting close to me. So I decided when I went downtown to work, Marshall Field, I went into the recruiting station, and I took all the examinations, and I passed it, and I put up my hand, and I said, I'm going to join the Air Force. And they says, you're in. So they gave me 3 days to sort out all my personal affairs. So I went home, and I told my folks, I said, I've enlisted in the Air Force. Of course, my mother was heartbroken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and my father that was a dumb thing to do, and it's not safe and all that. And I said, well, I'm gone. So they took me to the train station to see me off, and my mother was crying and all that.
Yeah.
So it was sad.
Because the threat of going to war and dying in that time frame was pretty high.
Oh yeah.
Or there's a pretty high probability that.
Well, yeah, Korea was hot. There was people getting killed. When I went in there, I went into basic training. And of course, when you go to a recruiting station, they tell you how glamorous everything is. They got bowling alleys and fancy barracks and all kinds of parties, and so they put us in tents, and we were freezing because we only slept on a cot with a canvas bottom, and we had 3 blankets. We put one underneath us on the cot and 2 over us, and we slept in our clothes because it was so cold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I didn't get a uniform until I was in there about 10 days. So I slept on the same underwear for 10 days with my clothes on.
Really?
And we couldn't shave or nothing because we had nothing. Had no money. They gave us no money. And the only clothes we had was the clothes we went down to the camp with. And there was so many people down there that they didn't expect us to have. So we slept in tents, and we had
Wow.
tents for about 8 weeks. And then we'd check the bulletin board every day. We'd hide, because as we wandered around the camp, the sergeants would try and get you to do dirty details like kitchen police and picking up trash. And so we would, a lot of other guys, we would hide in the service club. Reading magazines or whatever we could, anything to look like we belonged.
Yeah.
But we would hide. And when we see a sergeant, we would run somewhere else where he couldn't find us.
Oh my
So
God.
I was sitting on my bed at night, about 8 o'clock at night, writing a letter home, and this sneaky sergeant came in the barracks. And he said, "You?" And I said, "Who, me, Sarge?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "You got KP tomorrow. I want you out there at 5 in the morning."
What's KP?
Kitchen police.
Oh, okay.
That's peeling potatoes,
Oh,
scrubbing pans and pots.
yeah.
So I was misfortunate enough to get pots and pans. And they didn't give us rubber gloves in those days.
Oh, no.
They gave us a bar of Phil's Naphtha soap, which was very hard on your hands, and a scrub brush. And we cleaned the trays and the pots and pans with a scrub brush. And I was there from 5 in the morning to 8 at night. Doing
No
nothing.
way.
And I was doing pots and pans for 2,500 men.
Wow.
That's a lot of scrubbing.
Yeah.
And so after that, I made sure that they couldn't find me. I stayed away from the details.
Wow.
And then after 12 weeks, they posted my name on a bulletin board, and I couldn't wait to see. I saw my name. I went down there and listened. There's my name, and it said, University of Oklahoma. And I said, "My God, I'm going to heaven." I finally got out of hell. So
That was your first assignment.
That was my first assignment.
Okay.
It was called Tech School.
Oh, okay.
And it was an administrative. It was to learn typing and filing and stuff like that, to be a clerk.
Oh, interesting.
So I went to the University of Oklahoma for 12 weeks, and they put me on the baseball team. And
Which is great because you love baseball, right?
yeah, it was 12-inch. It was fast pitch. It wasn't baseball per se. It was 12-inch.
Okay.
And it was underhand fast pitch. So I was on the squadron team, and we played against teams in Oklahoma Oilers and Phillips 66ers and different local teams in the town. We played under the lights, and they charged an admission, but
Oh, cool.
we represented the Air Force, and we always got paid first in the squadron because we were ball players, and the
neat.
squadron commander liked ball players, so we would buck the line. We would go right in front of the line and get paid, and so we felt privileged. And I had a couple good roommates there, and then they promoted me to private first class.
Nice.
And then they sent me to England.
And that's where you met Nanny.
Bernadette.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when I got engaged before that, but that's a long story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a different.
It must run in the family, these multiple engagements.
Well, this was. I could spend all day on the engagement. But,
Yeah, oh, sure. That's a whole different video.
Yeah. So that's part 2.
Awesome. Okay, so in terms of your proudest moments, family and having a career.
Yeah.
It seems like you were pretty entrepreneurial from a young age and just in working and having that work ethic.
Yeah.
Do you think that came from your dad? If he was out hustling, or do you think that was just something as part of the times that everybody had to do that to survive?
I think everybody had to do something like that. Well, a lot of the kids in the neighborhood didn't do anything, but I wanted to have a little bit of spending money.
Yeah.
I mean, a dime is a dime. I mean, it's today a dime. You see it on the street, you'd pass it up, but boy, a dime. If you got a tip from delivering a newspaper for a week, and your customer gave you a nickel, you thought that was great, because most of your customers didn't give you anything.
Yeah.
And yet you deliver papers for a week.
I always found, similar to you growing up, I always wanted my own money. So I started working at, 12, doing a helping hands, mother helpers babysitting business.
Yeah.
But I feel like it can be addicting having especially when you learn from a young age that if you work hard, you can make money, and then you can either spend that money or save that money and see it grow. Do you find that that's been a theme in your life where you enjoy the fruits of your labor in that way?
Oh yeah, I think that being able to earn your own money is important because it gave me what I have today, and what I have today is total independence.
Yeah,
I
financial
am
freedom.
totally independent. I take care of my finances, and that's great. I know a lot of people that live here that their sons or daughters manage their finances for them. So they don't know how much they've got. They don't know when their money's going to run out. They have to ask. They have to ask for money.
Yeah.
I don't have to ask my children, who can well support me. I don't need to save money. I mean, I could spend it like crazy and just ask my daughters for handouts, and they would only be too happy to give me handouts.
Do you think because you are independent, you live alone, your mind is very sharp, and
Yes.
you're about to turn 89, right?
Yes.
So that it's pretty impressive that you're able-bodied enough to live alone and
Oh,
be
yeah.
able to handle that. Do you think having that independence has helped you keep your brain sharp?
Yes. Yeah, I think so, because people that have their children take care of their finances, they're so dependent on their kids that they don't know what they got, you know. I mean, I know a lot of my friends, and they're not near as old as I am. They haven't got a clue. They think that their money is running out because their daughter or their son says, watch what you spend. Well, nobody asked me what I should watch, you know. I mean,
Right.
if I want to go out and have a hot dog, I'll blow it. I'll buy a hot dog.
Getting crazy with the hot dog.
But no, I get my hot dogs at the Dollar Tree.
Oh God! What's your biggest splurge? I'm always so curious.
Biggest
'Cause you're
splurge?
you're pretty tight. I mean, you're pretty.
Oh.
You watch it for
I
sure.
watch it,
You
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
watch it.
Yeah, no, if I go on a vacation, like when we went to Ireland, I spent a little bit of money, but I didn't mind it because my daughters enjoyed it and I enjoyed it. So I wasn't looking at the money aspect at all. I didn't mind how much I spent.
Yeah.
But I knew that I shouldn't spend wild. I should just...
Why not? Why not blow it?
No, because I heard these stories about people blowing it, and all of a sudden they come back and they to realization, and they find out that they're broke. And no, I knew how much I could go, and
You had a budget in mind.
I had a figure, but I think we all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I know some of the daughters, they spent a little of their own money because they wanted to get souvenirs over and above the 100 euro that I gave them each, you know.
Sure.
But the 100 euro was just to get a trinket or something. But if they wanted to get something more expensive, that was up to them. But
Oh, of course.
I took care of the expenses, and I enjoyed it, and I may do it again in next year.
I think those are the kind of moments I feel like it's worth the expense because you're going to carry that trip with you for the rest of your life,
Oh,
and
sure.
so will they, and they'll
Yeah.
look back on it with such
Yeah.
fond memories and
Yeah.
the times that you got to share
See,
together.
next year they're going to take me to Ireland.
Was that right?
No,
That's awesome.
No, seriously, but Karen has already mentioned she might like to go to Scotland. I don't know.
Yes.
But I would not mind going, if I'm able physically, to go to a trip somewhere with all the kids. You know, it'd be nice.
What would you say are some of your life's defining moments? And how do you think about what a defining moment really is?
Well, defining moments is something that's probably one of the most important things in my life that I've done. One of the real big things that happened to me was when I retired after 30 years in the Air Force, and Bernadette wanted to be close to her mother. We just packed up everything and we went to England. We went to England without a job, without any prospects of anything. We just packed up and the two of us took off with
wow.
Susie. We just had no job, no prospects. And I knew that my funds would be very limited because all I had was a retirement pay. And for a foreigner to go to a foreign country without any prospects was a difficult proposition. And when I got over there, it really struck me how difficult it was to get a job. So we kind of labored, and so I was desperate to get a job, and so I went to the embassy, and they weren't hiring. American Embassy, they weren't hiring. And I looked at a lot of books and things about American companies in Great Britain, and it was totally beyond me to even begin to think, how am I going to get to all these different places for an interview? And so the embassy said, well, why don't you try the Navy across the street? Maybe they're hired. So I went to the United States Navy, and I went to personnel, and I talked to them, and they said, well, we can offer you a job in personnel. And this was very humbling because when I went in and they hired me in personnel, I was the lowest man on the totem pole.
Oh, really?
Everybody in there outranked me because I was a civilian, and there was sailors that just had 1 or 2 stripes. They were nobody. They were the lowest ranking there was, but I was even lower.
Wow.
I was the lowest.
After a 30-year career in the
yeah,
Air Force,
I was
having been retired.
I was a high-ranking NCO in the Air Force, and then I went into the Navy, and I was a nobody, and I had to take all this crap from all these sailors because I was involved in computing travel time and temporary living lodges, and so when somebody came into the headquarters, they would be put into a hotel. It was my job to figure out how much they were allowed to spend at the hotel, how much they were allowed, and how much we were allocated on a daily basis, per diem wise and everything. And I had to compute all this onto a typewriter, and I had to get all the letters within a certain parameter on these forms. And if they weren't right in there perfectly, it would reject the form. So there's a lot of frustration in doing this job.
Oh, wow.
And then I had to worry about other people that were of rank that came in and wanted their travel pay computed before somebody else. So you had rank that tried to push themselves before somebody else.
Yeah, juggling
so
the work and the people.
You had to be fair, and you couldn't play favors because that's not my game. I didn't give anybody because of rank any privilege over somebody else. First in, first out is the way I played it. So whoever's voucher came in first, that's the one I would work.
Yeah.
And the captain came in, he was in charge of the whole works, and he wanted to know where his travel voucher was. Well, that was not good for me because then the person in charge of personnel was wanting to know why the captain's wasn't already processed. I said, well, I got it at a certain time and I processed it according to order. So anyway.
So having once you've already had this full career and you've accomplished something enough to retire from it, and then to transition and move to England, what about that experience was so?
It was humbling.
It's just humbling.
Yes, it was the lowest part probably of my life, because all of a sudden I had accomplished something after 30 years, and that was, being in chief master sergeant was pretty high for it was the highest for an enlisted.
Okay.
And then go from there to the rock bottom, where your pay was so pathetic. And you're being overseas, and everything was so expensive. Yeah. And you got a wife and a child, and you're and you have no transportation, and you're depending on trains and stuff like that. It was very humbling. And then I had an opportunity. I looked at a circular that said they were looking for a person at a higher grade, and I applied for that, and I got the job.
Oh, nice.
And that elevated me to not a position of a lot of money, because it elevated me to a position probably of about $20,000 a year.
Mm.
But it was good to supplement my Air Force pay.
Yeah.
But it was not the money, but it was the benefits that I derived from that, and the status that I gained because of the position I held. It elevated me. It took me out of this basement and brought me up to the first floor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was.
And that was a proud moment for you to be able to.
Oh yeah, I mean, pride. God, pride is everything. But if you're down here in the swamp,
Mm-hmm.
and you're struggling, it's quicksand, and you're going down, and you know there's no up,
Mm-hmm.
and finally you got this rope, and you grab a hold of it, and you go up there, up to the surface, and there's a job that's got a position where you're on a staff, you're with the admiral, you're with the top people,
Yeah.
and you got a position where you've got somewhere you're working with a place where everybody respects you.
Yeah.
So you go out of a place where nobody respects you to a place where you're well respected.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a highlight for 9 years. It was just a fantastic place. But,
Well,
you know.
any other defining moments?
Yeah, a lot of them. Climbing up the ladder in the military was hard work because it took years and years
Mm-hmm.
to get to the top. It took
A lot of patience.
27 years to get to where I retired at. So
Yeah.
it was hard, but the family's got to be one of the most important things, because you strive to please your family. You strive to keep them afloat. You want them to be happy, even though you know that you can't give them what they deserve. You just don't have the money. And there's been a lot of ups and downs where I had to work part-time while I was in the military in California to buy furniture for the quarters, because we had no furniture, and we moved into base quarters with no furniture. So I had to go get a part-time job and put the furniture on time, pay it off.
Pay plan.
Yeah, and the only way I was able to do that was have a part-time job besides my Air Force. So there was a lot of highs and lows in life, and we sacrificed a lot. We had a lot of times where we worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the family suffered for it.
Yeah.
But having a strong wife helped pull it together, because the kids. Bernadette was a strong person, and she was a very strong person, and she did everything for the girls, and she made sure that the girls told the mark.
Yeah.
So
I've heard some stories.
I think that she even, if I'm not mistaken, I think she even had a wooden spoon.
Yeah. I think that was in one of the stories. That's
So
funny.
if the wooden spoon didn't work, she would say, "Wait till Daddy comes home."
Yeah.
And then I would say, "Now what?"
Oh God.
But yeah, she was a very strong person.
That's awesome. What advice would you give to this generation, or your grandkids, about life and importance and as we're all kind of growing up and starting
Yeah.
to find relationships and want families and all that kind of thing?
Well, that's probably not a tough question there, but I think that probably one of the most important things is how you're brought up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a good upbringing, then I think you're going to be wandering around. You're not going to have any direction. I think that this is what's happening with a lot of people that don't have a father. They're just brought up by their mother, and their mother's trying to do everything and support the kids and working and not being able to bring the child up. It's important for the parents. You really need two parents,
Yeah.
and both of them need to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to instill a certain amount of discipline. They can't be too progressive. I think if they're too progressive, and they leave the children, especially at a young age, run them, the kids aren't going to grow up properly. The parents have got to take hold of the children at a young age, and I think that's the parents makes the child as it grows up, and I think that's the key. You have to have a strong union between the two parents, and they have to be on the same page, because if one parent says child can get away with this and the other parent says no, and then there's a haggling and things, it doesn't work out. They both have to be on the same page, and I think we were. I think my wife and I both agreed on how we had to raise the children. So I think family is very important, and children have got to have discipline. They just cannot do what they want to do at any age until they grow to the point where they can make their own decisions and make good decisions. I don't know if that's a good
So
answer.
find a mate who you want to raise, assuming you want to have kids, because a lot of people these days don't.
Sure.
But finding someone who's on the same page about having discipline and being available to children, but not.
That is to meet the right one. I don't think there is any prerequisite for that. I think that love, I don't know, in my own case, I think love is when you know it's love, when you know that that's the one for you. I mean, you could date somebody and you could have a lot in common, but unless you feel that in your heart that that's the right one for you, then I think that it should just be a passing fancy. It shouldn't. You have to feel it in your heart. You really do.
So you believe that you just know.
You know.
When you know,
you know. Yeah, I think you do. You could be wrong. I mean, you could, I mean, I was engaged to a young lady, and I thought that was it. But it was infatuation. It wasn't true love. The second one was.
What was the difference? How could you tell when you met Nanny?
I just had that feeling that that's the one that I wanted, and it's something you can't explain.
Yeah.
It's something you feel.
Yeah.
Like I thought Mary was the one for me, and then I found out that it wasn't. But you can't rush into things. I think the worst thing you could do is rush into a relationship without really having enough time to do a background.
Yeah.
I think a background is very important. You need to find out where this person came from, what kind of a record that person had. I don't mean you don't have to do a police record.
Yeah.
But I think you need to do a little investigating, because my first engagement she was wild, and I didn't realize it, because she had a lot of affairs and I didn't know about it.
Oh, wow.
And then she joined the British Army and ended up in Egypt. And then I found out after she was gone, I had a lot of time to check things out and hear a lot of stories and stuff. And then it dawned on me, but that was sort of the breaking up period, because it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And then I had met your grandmother sometime before, because I dated her girlfriend. Not that I wanted to, but that's the only way my buddy could go out with my, so I dated this other lady that was sort of overcoming a suicide attempt. So,
oh, gosh.
So I was with this person for, 5 or 6 months, until I heard her story, because I couldn't understand why she was so cold. She was a very cold person. But when I found out that she was going to jump off the hotel roof, and because her boyfriend broke up with her, and then I was not into that.
Dramatic. Yeah.
Yeah, but
wow.
yeah, but
So
no,
you just knew.
I think
Did you know right away, or was it a couple months of dating that you?
I just had a feeling. It just but then it could have been an infatuation like the first one. You don't know, but it worked out. After about 10 months, I said, yeah, we're going to get married, and yeah, but she didn't
you were-
want to go to the States.
Oh.
No, she
But you guys were married for what?
35 years.
35 years
Yeah.
before she,
Yeah.
unfortunately
Yeah.
passed
Yeah.
away. Great. Well, this has been really insightful for me, and I appreciate you taking the time
Okay.
to chat with me.
Yeah.
Any other things you want to add to
No.
whoever's watching this, grandkids?
No, I don't know. We may want to censor some of this, especially the wooden spoon.
Oh, we're keeping that in.
Okay. No.
Awesome. But anyway, thank you, Granddad. I appreciate
that's
it. Bye, guys. Have a good one.